This is We Bleed Orange and Black, the podcast for Halloween and horror lovers. Join us as we interview creators, discuss our favorite horror, and share original spooky stories. I'm Jeff C. Carter. This week, we're talking with Elizabeth Rose Quinn about her new book, Follow Me. Elizabeth Rose Quinn is a novelist and screenwriter. She graduated with a BA in English from UC Berkeley and a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. Born and raised in Berkeley, California, Elizabeth lived in Los Angeles for 15 years while working in production and writing for television. Her debut novel, Follow Me, was optioned by Amazon MGM Studios and is currently in production as a feature film. She is married with 2 children and currently lives in New Mexico. In addition to traveling and exploring nature with her family, Elizabeth loves rolling fresh pasta, swimming in the Pacific Ocean, and looking for rainbows in the desert sunsets. Lizzie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
I have an icebreaker question for you.
I'm ready.
Hashtag sweater weather, hashtag it's fall y'all, or hashtag pumpkin spice everything.
I mean, you've got to just, if you're going to do it, be ridiculous. Say pumpkin spice everything. What's this sweater weather nonsense? If you're using a hashtag, cringe is already on the table. Go full cringe.
All right. I like it. We're diving in. I was curious, how does your background in marriage and family therapy inform your writing?
You know, I was a writer first, working in television in Los Angeles and doing all of that. And then in the pandemic, decided to go back to school and get this master's degree, work as a psychotherapist. It's really the same skill set. It's like, what is this person? What do they want? Why can't they get it? What is their own interior hurdle to joy, love, connection, success, whatever it is? And that's exactly what you would do in a writer's room, you know, try to find out what people want, what choices they're making that are getting them closer or further away. And now it's just real people versus fake people, and then back to fake people again in my book. And it just kind of all feels akin of the same skill set in a way that is very gratifying to me.
So I had it backwards. It was, how does your writing impact your therapy work?
Mm-hmm. And then the therapy work went back into impacting the writing. It's an Ouroboros, but with 3 snakes instead of just 2.
Who gets the tail? Which of the 3 snake
Everybody
heads?
gets a tail.
Oh,
Everybody gets a tail. Yeah, it's great. It's really fun. And I love working with my clients, and that feels really real and tethered to feeling like I'm making a difference in the world and making the world better and happier and kinder. And then I go back into my own little universe on my laptop and murder a bunch of people, which is, you know, it's all about balance, Jeff.
Let's dive into Follow Me. Can you give us a back of the book summary?
Yeah, so Follow Me is a thriller novel. It begins with Kiara, who is really struggling in that era of new parenthood. She's got twins. She feels like she can't make friends. She doesn't have community. And in order to kind of attempt to bridge that gap, she gets sucked into the social media Instamommy influencer world and is invited to the fanciest, kind of coolest, most cachet level influencer style weekend. And she goes not really wanting to become an influencer, but just to wanting to make friends and connect with other parents. And she never comes home. And then the book shifts to Kiara's twin sister. They are not identical, but they are twins. Adrian, who is not a mother, has never wanted to be a mother, finds everything about family life kind of gross, but no one can find her sister, and she's not going to let it go. So she decides she's going to infiltrate the last place that Kiara was seen alive, which was at the Style Summit. She's going to pretend to be a mommy herself and see if she can find a viable lead to reopen her sister's case. And that is when the hijinks and the gore begins.
You did a great thing in chapter 1. This mom, who is really on her last nerve, is finally up in Northern California. She's away from her family. She's going to get an actual night's sleep. And everything that's inside of her just comes out in like one long exhale, except it's a weird mix of satire and brutal honesty. Everything she's saying about all of her stressors is so raw, but it's so packed. The whole book is packed with a reference, like in every sentence, to some social media trend or some brand or some kind of mommy slang. It almost becomes its own patois. it floods the book, but it never gets tiring because it's 2025 and we're all just swimming in this stream. So it's
Mm-hmm.
amazing that you could fill a book with this patois and not have it get jarring or tiring because it's almost like the air we breathe now.
Yeah, I love that you picked up on that because it was a balance in the sense that it can be tiring. It can kind of start to feel, it can feel trite. It can feel like a crutch, too much of that stuff. But at the same time, I do find it kind of fascinating the way that online language has also become verbal language. Here I am talking to people saying things like IRL and TTYL, and this used to be relegated only to online spaces, and now I feel like there isn't that hard and fast barrier between real life and digital life. And if anything, it feels like digital life has kind of swallowed real life up. And so I really wanted to, exactly as you put it, saturate the book with that patois to kind of, I almost feel like literature and writing in this way is one of the few places where we still don't allow digital speak to come forward. And I kind of felt like by putting it in the book in such a aggressive way, I wanted to shine a light on it. I wanted to kind of feel arch and silly, but make you think like, why do I say IRL to my friends when I'm just having lunch with them? Why is this digital speak in all of our mouths now? That feels so awkward.
If you want to say something a little more poetic than the crass IRL, I prefer the term meat space. Whenever I am face to face with someone, I make sure they know that we're in meat space.
That's beautiful and kind of romantic,
Uh,
meat space, because it's like a meet cute, but it's your meat suit. I mean, there's so much there. There's layers. It's Whitman-esque.
you were talking about how the digital world has sort of swallowed the physical world, and at very least in terms of language. But I think you need that constant intrusion into the thoughts and the description and the narrative of these characters because at best, they are walking two worlds. They are trying to deal with the reality of keeping their kids safe and healthy and the expectations of other people while also balancing this artificial, airbrushed,
Performance.
performative motherhood online
Mhm.
for the consumption of other people, which is in fact really all for the consumption of capitalism.
Yeah.
You have this super long chapter to open up the book, and we get to know Kiara and her personality, her struggles, her relationships, her background. And then you do that rug pull. And we find
Mhm.
out this is not Kiara's story. This is her
Mm-mm.
sister's story. So we had to spend all that time in chapter one, and then we're off to the races. And so
Mhm.
Adrian is a twin who is like a sideways look at Kiara. She never wanted kids, never got
Mhm.
married.
Yeah, one of the things that I always come back to again and again in my writing is I love stories where two people have experienced the same thing, the same trauma, the same heartbreak, the same whatever that kind of core origin story moment is, and then their reactions are completely different and both make perfect sense. It's not like one person has gone off the rails, like, they both have a reaction that feels very tethered to reality, and then this tension of, "You're the only person who understands what happened, and I absolutely hate that you don't get why I'm doing what I'm doing," and this kind of push-pull of pulling together, "You understand," and then the pushing apart of like, "Oh my god, why are you like this? Why are you handling it this way?" Kiara and Adrian had a really complicated childhood with a mom who really struggled. And for Adrian, her response was, I'm never getting within a million miles of that. I don't want any picket fence. I do not want to get married. I do not want to have kids. Like, that looks horrible. And Kiara's response was, I really want to do this right. I want to have the childhood that I didn't get to have. I want to create it for my own kid. And those feel to me like both the most natural responses. And so the tension that they experience of really deeply understanding each other, but their lives have arrived at kind of inflection points where, oh my God, they're strangers. And I think that that's a place where it allowed me to do a lot of kind of emotional work in terms of we really love Kiara and we get why Adrian won't let her go. But on the flip side, we look at Kiara and we see like, wow, she got where she was because of who her sister was for her and what her sister helped her, believe and build, and the kind of intimacy of that relationship. And so I felt like in order for the book to go to all of the bonkers places that I wanted it to go, it needed to have this real emotional, grounded core. Because like Adrian's kind of a pill. Like people aren't going to want to hang out with her if they don't understand her and have some empathy for her, even when she's being a snarky pain in the ass. And then also, part of them being twins was the fact that the digital landscape has just revolutionized 18 times over since 2020. And then since if you start with 2000 when Facebook, started. And so I wanted two people who had grown up with the exact same amount of like internet literacy and social media literacy and how they also had navigated that. Like Kiara kind of is a little slow to it, but likes it and kind of thinks it's fun. And Adrian, meanwhile, is like, no, that's garbage. I want nothing to do with that. And Adrian being an outsider allowed me to kind of then poke fun at all the parts of it I think that we've forgotten are absurd.
Adrian is an outsider in terms of mommyhood, in terms of
Hmm.
this influencer culture, but also
Hmm.
society in general. She's an outsider in her
Hmm.
own family. She doesn't expose herself online because she's in hiding. She
Hmm.
does a lot of illegal and shameful things. She has very low self worth. It's great that they're twins, but they're not identical twins. Because then Adrian wouldn't be able to infiltrate the influencer
Yeah.
conference, but also
Hmm.
because they are imperfect mirrors for each other, each
Mm.
of them containing some half that the sister holds.
I love
They're
that.
both imperfect and incomplete without each other. There's so much good screenwriting, and I really appreciate the pacing and the plot, how you set up foils and mirrors for each other. Everything is set up in a really clever way. There's all these red herrings, the way you slowly reel out tension and mystery and stuff. Your screenwriting is on full display.
But Jeff, it's a book.
Oh, it's in there. It's in there. You cannot take the screenwriting out of the writer, I don't think.
God, it was so hard. When I sent the first draft to a friend, she read it and was like, yeah, this is really great. And she goes, Hemingway is begging you for an adverb because I was used to writing fast, plot forward, big character choices, dialogue. I'm not describing the weather. I'm not describing the sound of the trees or like the mist. I'm just like, no, 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 we got to move it forward. We got pages to get through. It was a struggle at first, and then once I feel like I kind of got my bearings again in prose, it was nice to feel like, oh, I can bring so much of that screenwriter pace, which I love now. Like I just want to fly. I just want to zip and then be able to also stop down into kind of more beautiful interior moments. But it was definitely when I read it now, I'm like, yep, there's all that screenwriting stuff. I really can't get rid of it.
The first draft was Get in Losers, We're Killing Mommies.
Yes, basically.
Fantastic.
Yeah, like even when I sent the book to my lovely editors and they have purchased the book and they come back and give me notes, the book is not long. So I'll say that. I added did my editor's notes 30,000 words in 6 weeks.
Wow.
It was short. It was really short when I sent it to them, and it's still not long. And I mean, I like that, but it was definitely, I was like, I gotta find that gear. I gotta find that slower gear where they're like, can you add 5 chapters? It's like, sure. Can you do it in 4 weeks? I was like, can I have 6? Like, sure, sure, sure. I was like, oh my God, I have to add 5 chapters. What am I gonna do? But
I'm a
worked out.
big fan of a short book. I went to college for screenwriting, and I love it just lean and mean. And as you said, plot forward, full tilt boogie. Can you talk about the importance of Halloween through the lens of social media moms?
Oh God. Okay. To me, part of Halloween that makes it so perfect for social media is many factors. First of all, I love Halloween. I've always loved Halloween. My dad had to make a rule that we weren't allowed to start decorating the house for Halloween until after his birthday, which was September 18th, because it was like getting earlier and earlier. It was it was like August, and we're like, what if we get the skeletons out now? And he's just like, no, make it stop. And so I have always loved Halloween. It's just been a fun thing. But I like little kid Halloween. Like I want to trick or treat and like do fun decorations and have all the like goofy stuff. And now that Halloween became like adult Halloween, which I kind of have my own issues with, where like children are secondary and I'm kind of like, what? Come on. Like they got to be able to participate in this a little bit. And then the social media Halloween happened and all of my thoughts about adult Halloween like went out the window. And now I'm just like, social media Halloween because it's non-denominational. It's decorations of any version, kind, and color. Like it's this perfect, I put it in there that it's a style springboard, right? You see how there's like Halloween trends each year. And I know that like the things that I put in the book are going to be out of style in 2 years. And the Kardashians having these giant photo shoots of how they're decorating their house for Halloween and everybody copying it. And it felt like not everybody celebrates Christmas and not everybody celebrates Easter. And, you know, we're not doing beautiful banquets at night for Ramadan. That's not a place where people can get Pinterest crazy, but Halloween is just, it's that perfect sweet spot. It's for kids, it's for adults, and it's time for us to like really express ourselves. So I felt like it was ripe for skewering, not Halloween itself, but what it's kind of become in that capitalistic every year new decorations kind of stuff. Because what we loved about growing up with Halloween is like we got the same stuff out every year. And now it's not about getting out that same skeleton. It's about getting a new skeleton and painting it a different color and having it coordinate. And I was just like, that is not what this is about. So that's why I think it was the perfect one for this story to have it be about Halloween. It starts with Kiara going for 4th of July, which is another kind of non-denominational holiday, but Halloween is really the apex.
I agree. I do feel like social media has sort of supercharged this Halloween as a consumer experience. Growing up, Halloween was in many ways about consumerism because you're going out and getting candy.
But that was it.
But that was it. And also, this was not like expensive candy. It was really Necco wafers and Tootsie Rolls. You were just as likely to have a hand-me-down costume or something made by one of your parents or one of your relatives than you were to get a brand new off-the-rack costume.
Yes.
But going back further, Halloween was not about kids until like 1940.
No, it wasn't. I actually listened to a whole podcast about this. And so it was this weird thing where I also feel like it's such an amazing kind of litmus test or lens through which to see like the progression of consumerism in America. And then when I look at, you know, other versions of capitalism, consumerism in America, and how now motherhood is about performing for capitalism and everything will be perfect for your child if you just consume or purchase the right things. And that happens with like, now we're all making leprechaun traps for St. Patrick's Day. Like, I've never heard of this. Why are we all doing this now? And like Valentine's Day becoming just like more and more insane. And Halloween, yeah, it's become this whole other thing of like perform this for your followers, perform how good your child's childhood is because you did the new version of a pumpkin. It's like your kids don't care and they didn't get to do that pumpkin. You did it, and we all know you did it.
You have a scene in a pumpkin carving tent that makes me nervous about inviting you back to our own pumpkin carving party.
I loved your pumpkin carving party. And I just want to say to the listeners, this pumpkin carving party was so fun and wonderful because there were people there who had never carved pumpkins ever. And like, we're just doing it for the very first time. There were stickers for small people because I've got a small child. And so it was about having fun and doing like fun pumpkin stuff and not who's going to be the best and then make everybody else feel like garbage because they can't make the perfect pumpkin. It's like, that is not what it's about. This is about fun stuff. And you hosted an amazing party and I loved it.
Thank you. I'm sorry you can't come back, but I'm scared. I'm scared of you after reading your book.
I mean, you know, I promise to leave the mommy rage at home. How about that?
Okay, nice. So this book is a murder mystery. I heard you say during your in-store event that you love a nice, cozy mystery. You could have wrapped this all up in a bow with a plucky crime solver, but you went much more hardcore and violent than that. I don't really draw a hard and fast line between thriller and horror, but why was it important to you to go to that extreme?
I mean, it would not have been satisfying. Like, there needed to be a pile of bodies. I'm sorry, it had to happen. For my own personal self, I wrote this book because I was mad. I was mad. I was a mom. I had a 1-year-old. COVID started. I'm trapped in my apartment. There's a fence around our city park. We can't go outside. I find out I'm pregnant with my second child at the beginning of 2022. And I thought, like, oh God, I guess my career's over. I just was so angry, and between the feeling of watching the social media really ramp up during COVID and saying, you could be a good mom, you could be a better mom if you just do all this stuff, and me knowing that like those videos are edited and they are not telling you that they're selling you that pan set or that, child development toy set that then you have to assemble and facilitate or whatever. The real money that that influencer is making is because they're selling you to the corporation. That's the real money. The real money is not you buying the little toy set. The real money is them selling your attention span in the attention economy to a corporation without your consent and without being honest about it. And so, like, that anger, and then the anger coupled of feeling like I'm so happy to be having a second child and it's going to ruin my life because no one actually wants to accommodate people who have kids. And those two kind of like twin tsunamis of anger just came together. And I just needed them all to die, Jeff. I just really needed to work through all of my feelings about like snapback bodies and crafting and all this stuff, that all the pressure and expectations that then are posed to you like you're already failing, and then here's a very expensive solution. If you don't do it, you're a bad parent and you're ruining your kid's life. I was like, nope, I've got to murder that idea. And that was just where the story needed to go.
Can you talk a bit about this proxy character for Kiara, Bernice?
Bernice is really an important and lovely character to me because I think she really exemplifies what we get a lot of with Kiara, but of course then Kiara drops out of the book, which is when you're a new parent and you're trying to figure out how to make your way in the world, you just feel so vulnerable. And I felt like Bernice was somebody who I wrote to not really have guile. She's not there to be savvy. She's not there to like network and do the mean girl thing. She is vulnerable, and she's also searching and yearning and wishing for a place and feeling like her life kind of disappeared under her feet. And I think it was really important for Adrian to hear more about that perspective from someone who wasn't Kiara, because it gave Adrian the space to reflect on kind of how unsupportive she had been of Kiara. And sometimes when you have that like one step removed, you don't have to be defensive because Bernice isn't talking about her. But Adrian hears Bernice's story and goes, oh God, that's also about me and me not being a very good friend when my sister really needed me. Bernice has a speech in the book about how angry she is that her life disappeared. And it's a moment where the vulnerability, you see how deep it goes and how pernicious it can become into a place of almost, of rage. It can become self-loathing. It can become opportunism. It can become all kinds of things. That's the kind of deep interior experience that a lot of mothers have that they don't feel like they're allowed to talk about because it gets warped into like, well, don't you love your children? Aren't you happy? I wanted to give voice to that in a way that Adrian could finally hear it. And that became Bernice.
I don't know if I am the target audience for this book, but man, the emotions are so raw and these characters are so well drawn, all wrapped up in this really snarky, twisty mystery. I really, really enjoyed it.
I'm so glad. Yeah, it was really fun to write. I needed to write it. I figured if no one buys it, I'll just make it a PDF and stick it on Reddit because this was the book that I needed. And as somebody who loves Halloween and loves all that stuff, I also kind of wanted something that was spooky but funny. I actually am a little bit much of a wimp to watch true horror because I have nightmares forever. And so I thought, what's the scariest thing that I could watch every year on Halloween? I want to write that story. And that was this. And it got wrapped up in a lot of deep emotional feelings, but I also wanted it to be campy and silly and fun and escapist and satire and all that fun stuff.
You nailed it. This book was an absolute riot. It is dripping with Halloween goodness, even if you are lampooning the consumer side of it.
Okay, but Jeff, we're skipping over something that's not about the book, which is I ran a haunted house every Halloween for like 5 years.
All right, hold on. Let me just delete everything we talked about. Actually, before we get into the haunted house section, can you please tell us about the cover art?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So my book is published by Thomas and Mercer, and I've had a wonderful experience with them. They're very communicative, and so they sent me 4 cover options. This was the first one of the 4, and I really loved it, but I did have one note, which was it used to be that in the eyeglasses, it was a chalk outline of a dead body. I asked them if we could change it to something else and gave them like a whole bunch of options, and one of the ones I suggested was planes. And so it was really collaborative, but so much of it came from them already. But what I loved about the cover art is the fact that you can't tell what she's doing. Is she looking at her phone? Is she recording you? Is she recording me? Is she the heroine? Is she the villain? And I thought that kind of ambiguity was really interesting. In the other covers, the woman, as she was portrayed, was more of an object or a kind of prey person that we were following. This felt ambiguous in a way that was intriguing. And so that was why it definitely had to be the number one choice by a mile. And I liked the fact that it's got a kind of almost like collage feel and, you know, the different media pieces, all of it I thought was really fun.
It's a really cool cover, and I remember when I was in your kitchen and you had a bunch of them taped up on the wall, and I was like, that's the one. And you're like, oh, good, that's the one I picked.
Yeah, it was cute. I let my kids vote. So we taped them up on the wall and they got to pick which one they liked. And my daughter liked that one because it was the most pink. And I was like, well, there you go.
There you
So gender apparently is very real, unfortunately. We didn't push her towards pink, but that was the one she liked. But yeah, no, you were very much you're like, please tell me you chose number one. We did, I promised you.
I love
You
pink.
knew.
Okay. Please take us into the world of professional haunting.
I worked at a Parks and Rec department. I did after school enrichment care and like, you know, art classes, and I taught preschool. And the Parks and Rec department was housed in this giant old Tudor house, like this huge, huge house, you know, where it's got like the carriage house in the back and the front had the big overhang, like it's the original house from the 1880s. You know, a lot of it's been converted, but a lot of it is the original. And so every year for Halloween, we would turn it into a 3-story haunted house. And it was so fun. It was really the highlight of the year. So when I say that I love Halloween and I like little kid Halloween, I've dedicated many, 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 many hours of my life. And so sometimes we would have a theme, and sometimes we each elementary school location would kind of choose a floor and convert it. But one of the best years was it had this beautiful, like very old wood staircase, really wide with this huge banister. And we always had to use this flame retardant plastic all over the walls to protect the antique moldings and all that stuff. It was not the most beautiful. And so one year we decided we're going to make it work for us. And so we bunched it all up and made the walls like incredibly textured. And then one of the staff members, we covered him in the same kind of baubles. So when he sat in the corner, you couldn't see him because he was in a shadow. So as people got to the landing, he would jump out at them. And we really had to time it right because if he jumped out too early, they were going to fall down the stairs. There was the outer kitchen room that we went around the city and just filled our cars. There was all these beautiful elm trees, just filled our cars with fallen leaves. Yeah. And so that was like a foot of fallen leaves. And we got all these corn stalks and hay bales, and somebody dressed up like a scarecrow. And he would wait until the last second and be at different parts of the room. So people would come through and think they would know where he was, and then he wouldn't be there. And he would be at the top of the stairs right before they go in the basement, which is always terrifying. So it was like this, people get really stressed out. It was just the greatest. It was so fun. We definitely did the kind of haunted feast one year, and we had a real pig's head that we got from a butcher. Day
Nice.
3 of the haunted house really started to smell. But the best part was is that we tiered it. So we had kind of different time frames. So the little kids could come and we'd have all the lights on and no one was in costume, and we would walk them through and they could touch stuff.
You had the silver platter over the pig's head?
The silver platter stood over the pig's head. Yeah, so it was really great. And then all the way up to like the high school kids coming and like all the lights are off. People are jumping out. Like we put it in there, like you could be touched, you may not be, but like It was just so fun, and just having this giant line down around the block for 3 nights of Halloween, and it was the greatest, and I loved it so much. So shout out to the Parks and Rec Department of Piedmont, California, and their old Tudor mansion, and it was just wonderful. So I come by my love of Halloween very honestly. I promise it's a lifelong cherished holiday for me, and I love taking my kids out trick-or-treating, and I love getting the same stuff out every year, and they love it too. We actually still have our skeleton up over our front door. We just haven't put him away, and now I've noticed that his spine is snapped in half and he's in 2 pieces, so his legs are on one side of the foyer and his head and chest are on the other, and my very small son goes, "Oh, skeleton owie." I said, "Yeah, skeleton owie."
It's time for a Halloween treat. Can you recommend a
Mm.
book, movie, game, food, or experience, past or present, that puts you in the Halloween mood?
Ooh. During the pandemic, we got in the habit of watching movies with our friends when we were in different places. And it was really fun to watch scary movies as a way to hang out even when we were separate. I love that. For me, I can watch a really scary movie that way because I don't get too scared because everyone's chatting. So if and in this universe, I feel like so few of us get to live by our close friends. And so if you have somebody that you love who lives in Michigan and you live in Florida, make a movie night and you can sync up your screens and watch The Thing, you can watch The Blob, you can watch Friday the 13th while you have a little FaceTime call in front of you and chit chat. And it's just a really fun time. It was one of the parts of COVID that really felt like nice to connect with people and gave me a way to finally be brave around a horror movie.
That's awesome. My friends and I started a socially distanced movie night during COVID, and we've kept it up. It's actually weekly now. Every Saturday night, we'll put on some horror films or some weird throwback 70s and 80s movies. It's so much fun to program this little mini film festival and catch up.
It's great. This year, I live on a little cul-de-sac, and we kind of had a little neighborhood Halloween party for the kids. And we have a green table, and I made like little alien arms and this big kind of like circle of fake paper teeth. And I had all these cups, and I filled them with candy. And I said, like, let's feed the monster. And you throw a ping pong ball in, and you get the candy in the cup. And my husband just looks at me and goes, "You made beer pong." I was like, "Oh my God, I made beer pong."
Got to
But
start
the
them
kids loved
young.
it.
Yeah, I bet they did.
I didn't mean to make beer pong, but yeah, Feed the Alien became baby beer pong, but it was great. And don't overthink it.
That's awesome.
Halloween is supposed to be fun. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just have it be a little bit spooky, a little bit gross. Make the individual pizzas with string cheese and 2 olive eyes for mummies. We've done that. My daughter wanted to have a Halloween birthday party for 3 years. And so we did, except that she's born in February. So just, in the middle of February, happy Halloween, come to my daughter's birthday. And the kids loved it. The parents were like, "What are we doing?" And all the kids were like, "Yeah, I would love to wear my Halloween costume again. Thank you so much."
This is your dad's worst nightmare.
This he's like, "What is happening?" But yeah, why not?
My Halloween treat for this episode, because I am basic, is the Starbucks PSL hotline. In 2020, they released a hotline, 1-833-GET-FALL, with all these different recordings you could choose from, where you go on a virtual hayride or you listen to someone crunching through leaves or knitting a sweater. It was so fun. I'll insert some clips.
Close your eyes while your mind walks through a forest of fall feels.
It's not up right now. It's no longer active, but that's my Halloween treat. Lizzie, what are you working on next?
I'm about to turn my next book in to my editor. I'm very excited about it. This is a scoop. I'm probably not supposed to tell you anything, but it will not be a Halloween book, but it will be a New Year's Eve book. So I love to kind of have a fun holiday to anchor it. And it will hopefully stay gory. And it's got that kind of social satire, social commentary, silly until it's dangerous kind of vibe that has apparently become my new go-to. And I'm just really honestly so thrilled to be working in the mystery thriller universe. This is a new professional arena for me. I cannot express every person I've met has been lovely. Every thriller writer has been generous. Every horror movie aficionado has had a list on their phone ready to text me. It just feels like the most welcoming, wonderful community of brilliant creators. And I just feel like I stumbled into the best party, and I'm just chuffed as hell to be here. So thanks for having me.
Where can our listeners find you online?
I am on Instagram at Elizabeth Rose Quinn author. I have a website, which is pretty basic. It's nothing exciting. It's nothing more than like, I'll be here in 2 months. And those are the main spots that I am. I try not to do the social media thing as much because, man, that thing gives you brainworms. So I'm trying to be intentional about not getting sucked into the world that I just warned everybody about. Otherwise, my next book should just be called Giant Hypocrite.
New Year's Eve.
But I will be at Thriller Fest in New York in June, and I'll be at BoucherCon in New Orleans in September. So those are the two big like thriller and mystery writer conferences. So if you're there and you see me, come say hi.
Awesome. Well, Lizzie, thanks for hanging out and hashtagging it up with us.
Oh my gosh, this was the best. I'm so grateful. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you to all your listeners.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe and follow. We're now on YouTube. Links are in the show notes. You can find me at jeffccarter.com, and I hit the link to pick up my collection, We Bleed Orange and Black, 31 fun-sized tales for Halloween. Until next time, stay spooktacular.
Flannel. 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 Don't leave just yet. Press 9 to go back to the main menu or stay on the line.